Welcome to Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in the San Gabriel Valley today, and we are joined by the president of the San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District. His name is Thomas Wong. I want to thank you, sir, for joining us. It's a better year, arguably. If this was last year, beginning of 2015, we would be talking about the complete lack of rain. We've seen some rain this year in 2016. Is it enough?
I mean, it's a welcome relief to have some precipitation, some water coming down, especially in Northern California too, since that's a source of water for us. But the challenge is going to be we don't get out of this drought with just one wet season. Even if it's especially wet, it doesn't make up for the last 4 years of extra drought.
As I understand it, in order to get out of the deficit, we would need triple the amount of rain that we are expected or supposed to have. We're not going to get that. The last El Nino, I think we got 1.9 times the amount of rain, and that was back in 1983. Look, events are moving quickly, but so far with this year's El Nino, it feels as if that we're seeing a little more rain in Northern California, not as much in Southern California. Things could change by the time this airs, but I had thought there was concern that we get too much in SoCal and they wouldn't get enough in NorCal.
Yeah, so typically El Ninos, I guess in the past, have brought more precipitation to Southern California, and actually Northern California has been a little bit dry. I actually read a news report though today saying the recent rains in Northern California actually aren't attributable to El Nino. It's just a typical pattern.
Oh, interesting.
And we haven't had very many El Nino storms actually in California yet. So we're kind of waiting.
And I also know there was some fear that if, and it makes sense what you just described, if the rains in NorCal were caused by El Nino, they'd be too warm and they wouldn't come down as snow. And we need that snowpack. But if you look at some of the pictures, you can see there's snowpack in Northern California mountains.
Yeah, we have snowpack here in our
I was going to say. So where do we go from here? Obviously, it's still early, but do we have a sense? I mean, I have heard predictions, sir, that we predict a Godzilla El Nino, the most powerful on record.
I mean, we've got in terms of public works in a lot of our cities and government locally, a lot of the attention is shifting to flood control and making sure our areas don't flood, rock slides from areas that haven't had a lot of rain or aren't used to it.
And can we talk about that? Because we have seen some mudslides. In the Antelope Valley, for example, there were mudslides a few months back. Mudslides are of significant concern. Hurricane Patricia, which actually occurred in Texas, caused some very significant slides there, but that was seen to be attributable to El Nino. Do you feel as if in this region that we have done enough to prepare for potential mudslides?
LA County Flood Control and Public Works in different cities in the county have actually done a lot over the last year or so preparing for this El Nino. As you know, we've been talking about this giant El Nino for quite a while. And so they've done a lot to clear out some of the catch basins and just make sure we're more prepared. But there's only so much you can do. And a lot of people's personal property, you just can't, the government can't go in and just clear
Which
that out.
in some ways begs the question. We have been talking a lot about El Nino. If you read the newspaper, if you watch local news, a lot of discussion about El Nino, and it's going to be the wettest winter in years. And so is that signal sending the wrong signal to our residents? Do we need to continue conservation efforts?
Yeah, and that's a challenge for a lot of water districts and water agencies. The media attention is shifting to it's going to flood, it's raining a lot, and the attention is, and the message is shifting away from we still have to conserve. I mean, the governor extended his 25% or the requirement cutback to October from April.
He did.
So we still have to conserve water. We still have to do a lot to make sure we are conserving, but it gets harder to get that message across when it is raining. But we have to make sure we're doing it.
But at the same time, when we look at conservation, there's also been this question about whether the goals that were set by the State Water Board were fair. Because some communities, they just are not able to hit their standards. And so I understand that while the governor did, for example, provisionally extend the conservation targets to the fall, the board is going to be considering with local districts whether there should be an adjustment. They're going to look at regional climate, growth patterns, whether districts use desal, because look, there are some communities in your area, Sierra Madre, for example, as I understand it, they're not hitting their targets. And so if month after month you're not hitting your targets, I mean, is it the targets are too ambitious?
I mean, it depends on each community and what they're really doing, and the state board has issued fines for communities that have been egregiously ignoring the mandates. But yeah, you're right. If I'm not mistaken, the state board has actually approved these new changes to the mandates in terms of cutting back, and they'll be adjusting based on climate and other potential variables, changing and allowing others, cities and water districts to change their mandated requirement for cutback.
There was a lot of discussion in 2015 about artificial turf. That was the buzzword that we used in 2015, and MWD and many water districts were giving very generous rebates to artificial turf. We saw that the MWD rebates got snapped up very, very quickly. They ran out, in fact, within a month, much sooner than expected. A lot of coverage about whether those are the most economical ways to obtain conservation. Folks have been saying maybe we should turn our attention towards more robust appliance rebates. But now it seems that while we're still looking at appliances and we're looking at turf, we're also looking at something known as rain barrels. And I want to get a sense from you about your rain barrel program, because it seems intuitive, but how does it work?
Yeah, so I mean, just really quickly,
please.
In terms of each rebate kind of program and things we want to incentivize, there's arguments for and against for all of them. But we just recently, our district recently approved the rain barrel rebate program for our member cities.
Sure.
Where we'll offer up to $100 per rain barrel, up to the cost of the rain barrel, and there's some online that I've seen for under $100.
So in your district, you buy the rain barrel and then you get a rebate. Because I think in some other districts, they're giving them away. You go somewhere and they'll hand them out. How big? What are these rain barrels?
The rain barrels, so they're essentially just barrels. You can either connect it to, most will connect to your rain gutters.
Are they as tall as you and I, or are they more stout?
It depends on what size you want to get.
I'm trying to understand.
The bigger the bigger they are, the more expensive they are. They're 55-gallon ones that are about half our size.
Okay.
That can store water from your rain gutters. They'll capture it, and then you can essentially attach a hose to it and use it to water your landscape.
So is that really the intent of these rain barrels? Is they're used for outdoor irrigation?
Yeah, so I mean that would just make sense because there are water quality issues.
Right, that was my question. I mean, are you needing to put a filter on top of the rain barrel? Can you drink this water, for example?
I mean, you can drink whatever water you want, but
what should one be drinking this water, for example?
I would, and it makes sense to use it and reserve that kind of water for landscaping use.
If I may, and I hope it's okay that we shift gears, can I just quickly talk to you about what's going on in Flint, Michigan? It's incredibly spooky for our viewers who may not be aware. Flint, Michigan, because of a governmental change, the city had gone bankrupt, and so the state came in, and what they wound up doing is they started taking water from a local source as opposed to Detroit, and it wasn't done properly, and lead wound up in the water, and it is a catastrophe.
Yeah.
Are we at risk here of a catastrophe like that?
I'm not sure we're in the same kind of at the same kind of risk that Flint has been. They've got a lot of infrastructure issues that have been there for decades. But I think there are lessons there that apply to us here as well. I mean, there are cities, not in my district, but in other areas in Los Angeles, Southeast LA area, where water isn't actually clean. It doesn't come out perfectly clean, and a lot of people don't trust that they can drink it. But there are issues in terms of contaminated groundwater basins here in the LA area.
Well, I know in the San Gabriel Valley as well as the San Fernando Valley, that's a very significant question. That the groundwater basins, for I guess it's years of defense work in the region, has caused some contamination.
Has leached a lot of chemicals into our groundwater, and we're cleaning that up, making sure it's cleaned up before we serve it to our customers.
Right.
But these are long-term issues that are going to take decades, if not longer, to make sure we're cleaning up, and cost a lot of money to.
He is Thomas Wong. He is the president of the San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District. My name is Brad Pomerance in the San Gabriel Valley. You're watching Charter Local Edition.